You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Ole Miss legend Bill Flowers, who joins the show during football season like he has for about the last 3 years. Bill, this game was a very interesting offensive performance, and I can't remember a more dominant performance by an Ole Miss team, regardless of the opponent.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree. I thought this was an offensive showing that checked every single box that you could possibly want to check. It is a 1AA team, but the fact that you can actually put those many points up on any opponent is impressive.
And more impressive to me is the shutout, because Ole Miss teams have played FCS teams a ton in the past, and they've blown out a bunch, including recently scoring 70 points. But most of the time, whenever they score 70 points, the other team scores 10 points. They score 14 points. They even score a field goal. At some point, there's a bust given up by the defense that allows the FCS team to score. And that was more impressive to me than the 76 points, because if we're going to be honest, Ole Miss has scored over 70 points about 4 or 5 times in the last 5 years.
Well, I think what's impressive is was the defensive line. This is the first time that you've been able to see a dominance in the offensive line, in the defensive line. Again, it is an FBS team, but like you said, there will be some busts. There'll be some things here. But the defensive line was so destructive that they couldn't even allow the offense to create opportunities to give the back end of the defense opportunities to bust. I felt like our corners, that transfer, did an amazing job.
Yes.
Again, these guys are college football players, and they're good. These FBS teams, the 1AA. And I can tell you, the 1AA teams are just as good as Division I teams for the first quarter, second quarter. It's when you get into the third and fourth quarter when the depth is so depleted that it becomes it's just not fair. So to see Ole Miss be able to shut them out, be dominant in the first quarter and the second quarter was impressive, but especially from a defensive line standpoint. And that's what everybody's been saying this year, is that they're finally built like an SEC team, and with the transfer portal and what they have, every opportunity that Lane has wanted, he's gotten.
Yeah, and Jaxson Dart threw for 418 yards in a single half, 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's just as a game, you're talking in the top 10 in Ole Miss history if you threw for that number of touchdowns. He did it in a half.
Yeah.
Now, was Lane Kiffin subconsciously maybe trying to get some Heisman numbers kind of stacked up, because Jaxson Dart is the Heisman favorite, tied for it on FanDuel right now and on betting lines? Or was Furman's secondary just that bad?
Probably a little bit of both. I will tell you the one thing that concerned me a little bit watching the game, and I don't know if you would agree with this, would be everybody knows that Ole Miss is going to be able to throw the ball. That's a given. You're going to, they're going to take the middle of the field with their tight ends. Hallelujah. And they're going to be able to exploit everything. And, they know that. The question is going to be, can they get 3 yards down in the middle when they need it? If you can't get 3 yards when the defense knows you need 3 yards, because you don't have that pounding bruiser back, or you're not able to do it, that's going to be the question. I think that's really what separated Ole Miss offensively in the past, obviously, is being able to be the Alabama that says, listen, when I need 3 yards, I get 3 yards. I think that was the question going into the offseason was, with the loss of your power back, do you have a replacement for that, to get that back that said, hey, you know what, we're going to line up in a formation, we're going to get 3 yards when we need it, and we're confident in it. If they can do that, I think that's going to check the box. I think the thing that concerns me also, and you've probably heard me gripe about this in the past, is that Ole Miss never plays anybody until strap it on, it's ready, the SEC play, and by that time, everything that you need to work on, because you're actually getting pressed, it's too late. When you play good teams in the beginning of the year, they're non-conference, it forces you to really have to, show your cards and focus on what you need to focus on. So by the time you play Alabama and you play, SEC schedule, you've kind of worked out the kinks. And I think with as good as Ole Miss is this year, MTSU and we're really not going to play anybody until we get there. But I think that we have all the pieces that this weekend showed that. But the one thing that didn't show was, can you run a formation where you need 3 yards and just pound it, down their throat?
Yeah. And part of me on the show this morning, I did actually, was the question. I asked the question is like, was this a symptom of a problem or was it a product of the game plan? Because if Furman's secondary was as bad as they looked and you could get all of those yards passing the ball, why run it?
Well, you ran it. He ran the ball a number of times, but he never ran the ball down. He never ran,
He didn't gash them, but there wasn't really a time where when they needed 2 yards, they didn't get 2 yards.
They didn't. And that's going to be the question. And I think that's the that's the only question mark out of the entire game. The question mark is, can you line up in a formation and get 3 yards when you need it? That's the only question mark that I had.
Do you think Matt Jones deserves like some first half run?
I think and again, it's going to be interesting with as many backs as they've gotten in the portal. You're going to have to, like, I was surprised Bentley didn't get more plays, and quite frankly, is Parrish that much better than Bentley to be able to be the starting back?
I think they're load managing Bentley just a little bit.
Okay,
he has gotten injured every single year. So I think they're just being overly cautious against him.
Yeah,
I think it's going to look different whenever the SEC play starts.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be. I think you need to get everybody in, but it's going to be hard to get everybody in, and you have so many pieces that if he's going to be your power back, then yes, I think you need to be able to get some, to get him, a handful of series to say, hey, you're going to be our bruiser, you're going to be a pounder. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to run the ball for a couple plays. For a couple series. I guess, but at the end of the day, you only have so many running backs. You have only so many plays, and it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that Ole Miss fans need to watch for against Middle Tennessee and moving forward is somebody to emerge between Rashad Amos and Matt Jones. Ole Miss probably needs that third running back. They need that bruiser. They need that thumper.
Oh, they'll 100% need it come SEC play.
Absolutely. Should be really good. All right, when we come back, we'll continue talking to Bill about Ole Miss football and move on to Middle Tennessee a little bit. But first, I do want to let you know, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, you're guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. You've heard us talk about a lot about FanDuel, America's number one sports book, but we have something a little bit different right now for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with YouTube TV and a base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Saturday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel it anytime. That's $5, and you can bet on Ole Miss to cover the 41.5-point line that they're favored against Middle Tennessee. The over-under has gone up as well. It's up to 63.5. I think FanDuel is kind of thinking it's going to be about a 52-10 type of game. FanDuel thinks pretty highly of the Ole Miss Rebels right now. So just visit FanDuel.com and download America's number one sports book now. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. Now, the good news, Bill, one last thing from the game against Furman. 2 different tight ends caught touchdown passes. The use of the tight end is obviously going to be a part of this offense. I think Caden Prieskorn is going to be a safety net for Jaxson Dart this season.
Yeah, I think he is too. I think the message was loud and clear last year. You saw the Peach Bowl where he took full advantage of that, and you could see just the ease of how utilizing him just opened up everything else, and the floodgates open when Priestcorn's getting the ball. So I'm excited to see that. I'm like I said, I don't think Ole Miss will lose a football game this year if they utilize their tight ends in the middle of the field, and they're getting a lot of love. Because with as much firepower and talent they have, as long as they're able to consistently move the ball, and you've got a quarterback that's been in the system for 3 years, which is really unique, and that's the dream that every coach thinks of. Let me have a great quarterback in my system for 3 years, and we should be able to go as far as he can take us. And it's not only him, because there's so many talented players around him. I mean, Harris is, I'm going to say he's the best overall player on that team right now.
He's really good. He is very, very good. And this was all, we did not see Jordan Watkins. We saw Caden Lee, who is a backup, and he did a very good job. But Jordan Watkins, the rumor is he has a hamstring issue. Now, as a wide receiver, how long did it take to come back generally from a hamstring?
Those things that can all be, they're all different. I mean, if it's, I've had one where it was high and it can linger for 2 weeks. It can linger for 6 weeks. It just all depends, how severe it is. I would, if I've got talent in depth and I know that I've got a true starter that's injured but with a hamstring, I'm going to rest him and make sure that we do everything we possibly can to get him reps throughout the week, which is kind of being gentle and light and easy. He's not a transfer portal guy. He's been in the system. You know what you have. He's comfortable with his quarterback. So that's a luxury that gives you the ability to allow him to be mature, to say, hey, you know what, we're going to rest you for at least 3 weeks. You need to get the treatment. You need to make sure you're doing the things you need to do. And just don't play players that have those tweaking, nagging injuries that can linger for the rest of the year.
And I think I looked it up. If Jaxson Dart averages 306 yards per game in the regular season, by the end of the regular season, he'll actually break Eli's career passing mark at Ole Miss. And did you think that anybody would ever come close to that number?
Well, with the type of offenses that they're running now, yeah, I mean, it's you're thinking, you're throwing the ball 50 times a game. It's these hybrid air raid offenses.
You're starting to sound jealous, by the way.
I am very jealous. Not only am I jealous that they have that offense, but also that the players are NIL making tons of money. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see this from Jaxson Dart. I don't think there's, I was actually talking with somebody the other day that they didn't think he had that strong of an arm, and I'm like, really? I said, I think he's got a lot more powerful arm than Corral, or really. I mean, the only person I think maybe had a stronger arm than him might have been Kelly.
Probably Kelly, yeah.
But I mean, I think Jaxson Dart has all the tools in the bag to be as good of a quarterback that's come through Ole Miss. And the question is going to be, does he have the mental capacity to be able to make all the reads when he needs to read? And that's what really makes a really good quarterback, is the mental capacity to process stuff and hit the right reads.
And everybody needs to remember, Ole Miss fans probably they're not even thinking of this, because Ole Miss is favored by 41 points in this game against Middle Tennessee. But Derek Mason, as a defensive coordinator, is known for being able to confuse quarterbacks. So this is actually going to be a decent test of Jaxson Dart reading the defense and stuff like that, because Derek Mason and his defenses are traditionally very good at doing this.
Yeah, and we've always had issues with Vanderbilt, even when he was the head. This is the Derek Mason, the coach that was at Vanderbilt, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a good coach. So it will be a test, But again, you're talking about superior talent, and
41 points is 41 points. I mean, I can't paint it up as a huge challenge.
I think where you're going to see a lot of the when you're trying to trick players, when you've got a defensive coordinator that's going to scheme against a quarterback, that scheming and that tricking only matters when you have a short time to throw the ball. So if Jaxson Dart sits back there and has plenty of time and doesn't have to worry about a rush, you're not going to trick him. Again, he knows his offense better than anybody in the country, better than all the coaches, because he's been there for 3 years. This is what he's been doing for 3 years. So you're not going to trick him that way. Only way you're going to trick him is by forcing him to make error decisions, because you have a rush on him and he can't get the ball out quickly. That's going to be the when he makes mistakes. So I don't think you're going to see stuff until you are in SEC play. And again, that's why I wish we would play a really good out of conference team, so you can understand, all right, what's a good litmus test to see where we need to fix things? Where do we need to work on things before we get into SEC play?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask you one question. How quickly as a wide receiver did you realize you were single covered?
Well, you can before the play starts, essentially you're able to see if you're single covered. You're going to be able to look at the safety, and that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a safety high over the top, like if it's cover 2, or you're going to see cheating. It's almost like bracketing. So if you're looking at a short side of the field and you see a safety over the top, but he's further over, it's almost like a triangle. You see the outside linebacker, then you see a safety a little bit over the top of him, and then you see the corner. That's how you know you're double covered.
The reason I ask is because of the helmet communication, the technology that they have with that being on and Ole Miss snapping the ball so quickly. If they can notice that, they can radio it into the ear. It's like, hey,
and you also notice, so the problem with that theory is that he's going to have to snap the ball before 15 seconds, and a lot of times but you can also disguise it by, a blitz, or if you see somebody moving. I mean, they're not going to give you complete, hey, I'm double covering them. They'll do stuff after the snap by rotating and things, but it's when the ball is snapped and you look and you see people moving. Like, this is why people don't understand how much goes into football. You need to look at the backer. You got to look at the safeties. You got to look at everything going on. So when the ball is snapped, if you see a safety coming down fast, well, that's a blitz, and somebody's going to be either coming over the top of that person. That's why a lot of times when you see balls about to snap, you see people running down toward the line of scrimmage, and you start seeing the backside. You start seeing the safeties rotate. When that play happens before the snap and no one's moving and the ball is snapped, us receivers, we have to keep our eyes on the backers, on the safeties, because it's our responsibility to understand that if there's 6 men on the line of scrimmage and there's 6 men that are blocking, if there's a 7th person that comes, that's hot. That means the quarterback has to get the ball out of his hand fast, because there's not enough men blocking. And that's one of the ways that you can kind of trick young offenses to making mistakes, is by those young receivers not understanding and not recognizing, when somebody comes, a pre-snap read, understanding that if this person comes, then I've got to do my hot route. I've got to be ready for that. So those are ways that receivers have to be cognizant of, that when you're talking in the football, when that quarterback's listening in his ear, before 15 seconds, he's communicating with those receivers. Hey, if this guy comes, he's hot. Being able to point to different people that, that's going to be able to help them. But after 15 seconds, I think it really becomes even playing field. And that's one of the things I watched this weekend. I watched to see how many people actually snap the ball before 15 seconds. And I did not see it very often at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way, as this season goes on, we'll see kind of what's going on with that. And as a wide receiver, just say it. When do you start concentrating? You get into the mode of like the ball should be on the way. I mean, because you have so much pre-snap going on, you are actually going through the first part of your stem, looking at safeties and things like that to figure out what's going on. When do you actually turn into all ball?
When the ball, a lot of the times before the ball snapped, because you can kind of, you understand what coverage they're in. If they're in 3, if they're in 2, if they're in 4, if they're, you recognize that that this half of the field, they're in 2. You look at the other side and recognize that they're in 3. And you recognize that, if the ball is snapped, this is a hole shot for me. I'm getting the ball. It's a corner route for me. Perfect. Cover 2. A corner route is perfect for a cover 2 because you've got the high corner side of the field, short side of the field. So pre-snap, if the ball snaps, it's coming to me most likely. Or, that's really, pre-snap is a huge moment when you pretty much realize the ball is probably going to come to me in this coverage because I know that I'm the number 1 read, or I know I'm the number 2 read. The number 2 read has me, getting the ball if they're in this coverage. So and again, people don't realize how much thought process and kind of, just the learning process that has to go in with being a receiver and a quarterback or a lineman, a running back. There's a lot that goes into it.
The last time that Ole Miss had a third-year starting quarterback was actually that team that you was on with Eli Manning. And did you have like secret signals like in the middle of the game where Eli would just like signal something for you that only you would pick up?
Yeah, you mean you can do, hand signals.
Yeah, did he have something that was just like kind of interesting to everybody?
No, I mean you have your, hey, you're hot, or hey, you know what, you're gonna 2, 3, you just kind of do little hand signals of hey, you know what, you're hot, if this happens, or this is I'm changing the play, I'm audibling. You can't hear my voice, just like at Auburn on that third down play where I caught the it was
that third down for that before Lorenzo Townsend.
Yeah. It was so loud you can't hear. It literally sounds like a train's coming through. You cannot hear anything. So you have to be able to understand what's being communicated through sign language, through just, through signaling with hands.
Should be pretty interesting. I stuff like that's interesting to me. Maybe somebody else watching this video to be interesting to them as well. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Bill Flowers joins the show after every game. Thank you, Bill, for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
All right. Hi, Toddy.
Howdy, Toddy.